Hi everybody, and welcome to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. In this video, we've got a post from Am I the A-hole with an update, one from Bridezilla's via Entitled People, and one from Petty Revenge, which has become my favorite petty revenge so far. So if you want to go ahead and get started with the stories, just use the timestamps below the video. Now, let's get started with the first story. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole, and it's from user AITA Evil Sister. Am I the a-hole for yelling at my sister and telling her I want my money back? My 40 male sister, Rachel, 25 female, escaped a bad marriage with her daughter Katrina, 8 female, almost 8 months ago. My other sister, Jillian, 34 female, lived in the same state as them, so she and her husband offered to take them in and they set up a GoFundMe to help Rachel get back on her feet. I donated $1,000. I used to call or FaceTime Rachel and Katrina at least twice a week when they were staying with Jillian, and they always insisted everything was fine and they were happy there. Then, 2 months ago, Rachel called me and asked if she could stay with me for a while. Jillian and her husband kicked them out because they couldn't pay rent anymore. Apparently, all of the money raised from the GoFundMe was used to pay rent to Jillian and her husband. Additionally, Rachel has been taking care of their kids, 2 female and 5 male, full-time, as well as doing all the cooking and cleaning while paying rent for her and her daughter to sleep on the floor of the kids' playroom. I flew them out and they've been staying with me, my wife, 38 female, and our kids, 7 female, 9 male, and 10 male, since. When Rachel told me everything, I called Jillian and berated her for how she treated Rachel and Katrina. She tried to defend it by saying they needed the money and that it was expensive to have them living there. I lost my temper and told her that she's full of crap and demanded that she give me my money back. Jillian tried to argue that she needs that money for her kids, but she eventually returned it. Now she's telling the family that I'm a monster that took money from her and her kids, and I'm starting to doubt myself. Am I the a-hole for demanding that my sister gives me my money back? Wow, OP, your sister Jillian and her husband are a special kind of scummy. I'm not sure what they did to Rachel is outright abuse, although I am inclined to think so, but they definitely took horrible advantage of her. No, OP, you are not the a-hole. They basically profited from your sister having a bad time under the guise of helping her out, made her work for them for free, and scam people out of money through a GoFundMe. So yeah, again, you are definitely not the a-hole for asking for your money back. Your sister Jillian sucks and her husband sucks just as bad. Now, the cherry on top for your sister Jillian is that when you confronted her and demanded your money and she paid it back, thankfully, she then has the nerve to badmouth you about putting her through a difficult situation, how a monster you are? Good grief. This woman has zero moral compass. If I were you, I'd set the record straight and tell the family how she took advantage of her sister. What about you guys? What do you think? What is your judgment? Let me know in the comment section. And now, let's move on to the community comments to see what they had to say. No Cardiologist 1461 says, not the a-hole. Jillian should have made it clear that she could not host them, or be upfront about taking the money for her own family. It's understandable that someone would want to be compensated for extra cost of living, but it sounds like Rachel compensated already with the childcare, cooking, and cleaning. Didn't Jillian save money from not having to pay for childcare? How did she do that before? Concerned Reader 1982 says, not the a-hole. Make sure if she's blasting you, you fill the family in on facts. Fact. She kept up a GoFundMe to help Rachel get back on her feet. Fact. She made Rachel take care of her 2 children as well as all domestic household chores for free. Fact. Rachel and her daughter were made to sleep on the floor of a bedroom. Fact. Rachel was made to pay rent. Fact. Jillian used all the GoFundMe money for her own personal gain. Fact. Jillian and her husband kicked sister and daughter out of the house because they were no longer benefiting them financially. Fact. Your sister and her husband are dicks. Once you present all these facts and remember why you got mad in the first place, then your family and you will understand how low your sister and brother-in-law are. King Shawarma says, "This is what's called a scam. She used a family member as an opportunity to make some quick cash. I'm glad you called her out on it." Well, the community agree that OP is not the a-hole, and the majority agree that Jillian and her husband are sucky people, except for that first commenter that kind of tried to understand their position, but still, in my opinion, no excuse for how they treated Rachel. Anyways, I compiled and curated some of the responses that OP made in the comment section to some questions and other comments to give you guys a little bit more context, so we'll read that now and then we'll move on with the update. They said Rachel and Katrina could stay as long as they needed. Jillian and her husband were footing the bills, but in my opinion, Rachel paid more than their share by being a full-time nanny to their kids, a maid, and chef. Jillian and her husband had no right to take the GoFundMe money. They never gave Rachel that money, so she couldn't use it to get an apartment. The amount Rachel paid Jillian was a little over $3,000 for 6 months. I talked to Rachel about reporting Jillian, but she doesn't want to get Jillian in trouble because Jillian gave her some of the money, $100, and let them live there for 6 months. I have a job lined up for Rachel that she should be able to start next month. She'll probably have to stay here for a while, but my wife and I don't mind. We have the space for them, and we can afford the extra groceries and utilities. Plus, Katrina and my daughter are best friends and love being able to play together. Even though Rachel's doing so much better now that she's here, Katrina is still having a bit of a hard time. And with that additional context, that to me further cements Jillian and her husband as people who suck, we can now move on with the update. I talked to Rachel about what we're going to do with Jillian, and we decided to give Jillian an ultimatum. Either she gives Rachel all of the money from the GoFundMe, or we report her to GoFundMe and tell the family about how Rachel and Katrina were treated while they stayed with them. She chose the former, and we worked out a payment plan so she'll pay it back over the next 12 months while paying back a 5% interest rate. She already sent me the first payment, and we're hoping we won't have any problems with this. Katrina is also starting to do better. She's talking more and is okay with staying with our nanny for a couple of hours if Rachel has to step out. She's going to start 2nd grade with my daughter next week, and we think it'll be really good for her. Also, both Rachel and Katrina are in therapy now, and Katrina will be getting extra help through her school. That's about it. I'd like to thank everyone for their comments and advice on my original post. I showed it to Rachel, and seeing other people acknowledge that how she was treated wasn't okay helped her agree to confront Jillian and demand the money back. Well, that was a short and precise update from OP. It's good to know that Rachel and Katrina are doing a lot better, and they confronted Jillian about what she did and that she has to pay the money back. Now, regardless of whether I believe that the payment plan is lenient or not, I don't know Jillian and her husband's reality, and OP and Rachel do sound like good people, so a year to pay all the money back does sound like something Jillian could do. So here's hoping that Rachel and Katrina do a lot better and that they get their money back and that Rachel can start that job that OP had lined up for her. All the best to them. And now, let's move on to the next post. This post is from the subreddit entitled People, and it's by user Cyborg Knitter. A bitchy bridesmaid meets an unmovable force, my mother. Some quick background. My baby brother was born terminally ill, and the long hospital stays and expensive meds kicked in around 6 months old. To cope with the huge medical bills, Mom worked some odd jobs over the years, including making custom wedding and bridesmaids gowns. My mom had a few die-hard rules. Number 1, she did all of your measurements. I heard the lecture of vanity fibbing only results in a poorly fitting dress, more times than I can count. Number 2, all final fittings must be completed at least 3 weeks before the wedding. That way, if Dewey had an emergency hospital stay, she'd have time to arrange for someone to sit with him while she went home to finish a job. He was non-verbal and needed a constant companion. This particular bride wanted all of her bridesmaids in pastel organza dresses. Organza is a gauzy fabric. The base dresses were white, covered with these colors. Unfortunately, the bride had more bridesmaids than pastel shades the fabric came in, meaning one lucky bridesmaid wore tan. The bride refused to start a fight by assigning colors, so it was first come, first serve. When you came for measurements, you got to pick from the remaining colors. One bridesmaid lived 3 hours away and flat out refused to come to town to be measured. She insisted that telling us she was a size 8 was good enough. Bridal sizes are very different and didn't cleanly convert, so that meant nothing. Mom finally reached a compromise that a local seamstress could measure her and send in the measurements. 1 month before this wedding, Dewey was admitted into the ICU to be placed on a ventilator. Mom now had to find coverage enough to get 8 dresses finished off in the next 2 weeks or so. She pulled it off thanks to amazing friends, but it was tight. Dad was busy working overtime to pay the bills and dealing with us other 2 kids. Well, this bitchy bridesmaid, BB from now on, still refused to have a final fitting more than 2 days before the wedding. She didn't want to waste a trip just because OP's mom was a horrible seamstress who didn't understand proper sizing. I was cleaning up seed pearls during that lovely conversation. My mom begged a friend to sit with Dewey for an entire day so she could do the fitting and adjustments all at once. Bitchy bridesmaid was 2 hours late. When she arrived, she saw the hideous tan dress and began literally screaming about how it wasn't fair, and my mom must have picked that color. She demanded another bridesmaid return their dress and both dresses get swapped colors. It would have been 20 plus hours of work, so Mom laughed and told her that was a big no. The bride arrived and told her friend that color was the only option left and she was sorry, but it was that or drop out of the wedding and pay for the dress anyways. Bitchy bridesmaid finally agreed to put it on. Yeah, she'd lied about her size. When the zipper didn't go all the way up, Mom whipped out the measuring tape only to discover this bitch had shaved 1 or 2 inches of every measurement except height. Her defense was that she wasn't going to let a jealous seamstress lie about her, so she fixed the numbers before passing them on. By this point, my mom was all but breathing fire. Her son's life hung in the balance and this lunatic was making her life hell. My mom demanded double for the dress because she was going to have to add strips to the base white dress to make it big enough, then make a whole new overdress from organza. It was doubling the time and adding substantially to fabric costs. Bitchy bridesmaid fought over it, and my mom finally told her, "Fine, pay me the agreed upon amount and take your dress as is." Now the bride herself was bullying Bitchy bride into just paying up. She finally agreed to it, and my mom told the bride to get Bitchy bride out of her house. They could come back in 5 hours to get the dress. Thankfully, the redone dress was a perfect fit. Bitchy bridesmaid paid the remaining balance and left after that. The day my brother died, my mom refused to ever make another wedding dress. She's only made one in the 21 years since as a favor to the friend who spent that ill-fated day with Dewey in the ICU while mom fought with Bitchy bridesmaid. Wow, that Bridezilla was just too much. I mean, even the bride was full of her crap and told her, you know what, you either take the dress and pay whatever you need to pay to get it done, or you're out of the wedding party. The rules your mom had set in place for these things not to happen sound absolutely logical and right to do. And this bitchy bridesmaid is actually proof that those rules should be enforced. Not only was she a pain throughout the whole process, but she lied about the measurements, which was rule number 1 and why that rule was so important. Your mom was going through what I can only imagine was a horrible moment in her life, and this moron was just making her life even worse. Your mom OP is a rock star. Good for her for standing up to this idiot. And now let's move on to the final post. This post is from the subreddit Petty Revenge and it's by user rsoul. Just take your stuff and go. Okay. I caught my ex-wife cheating a few years ago, and during the ensuing argument, she said, "Just get your stuff and go if you're going." Okay, no problem. The next day, she goes to work, and I take the new TV, fridge, freezer, all my clothes, electronics, and the front door, which I'd just replaced and it was still outstanding on my credit card. I leave about 5 minutes before she's due home, and the neighbors are keeping an eye on the place until she gets there. As you can imagine, I got a really interesting phone call which I sent to voicemail. About an hour later, I get a call from the police. She said that I stole the front door. I offered to show the police that it's on my credit card and hasn't been paid for yet, so it's mine. Never went back or spoke to her again. Always wondered how she managed with no front door until she got it replaced. One of her favorite expressions whenever we had a disagreement was, "You know where the door is." This time I definitely did. It was in the back of my van. Wow, standing ovation OP, standing ovation to you. This is my favorite petty revenge post I've read so far. It's beautiful. You took the door and now you know where it is. Well done, OP. And it's that time that we've reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I certainly did reading them to you. So if you did, then go ahead and give the video a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and become a member of our Discord community that just keeps growing, and it is fantastic. And like I said in the beginning of the video, all of the relevant links are in the video description below, so be sure to check them out. And finally, I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to watch this video. It really does mean a lot to me that you guys enjoy this content, so thank you once again. And having said all that, I will see you guys in the next video.